The lush, manicured green lawns of South London have long served as the backdrop for more than just world-class athleticism, acting instead as a grand open-air theatre where the worlds of sports, Hollywood celebrity, and centuries-old royal tradition collide in a spectacle unlike any other on the global calendar. For generations, the annual tennis championships have drawn the eyes of millions across the globe, not merely for the fierce competition on the historic courts, but for the unspoken social dramas unfolding simultaneously in the pristine, sunlit stands. It is an arena where every glance is micro-analyzed by lenses from around the world, every gesture is catalogued, and even the simple act of adjusting a garment or choosing when to applaud can transform into an international talking point overnight. This year, as the summer sun beat down on the historic venue, an audience of 15,000 expectant spectators packed the grandstands to witness the crowning of a new champion, creating an electric hum of anticipation that reverberated far beyond the physical confines of the stadium itself. Within this massive sea of humanity, however, all eyes inevitably gravitated toward a singular, highly exclusive enclosure known as the Royal Box, a legendary space where elite status is both displayed and rigorously scrutinized by onlookers searching for any sign of shifting societal dynamics. The atmosphere was already charged with a unique blend of high society elegance and palpable sporting tension, as the crowd awaited not only the arrival of tennis royalty, but the physical manifestation of the British establishment itself. Before we dive deeper into the fascinating layers of what unfolded on this sun-drenched afternoon, make sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dive investigative reports into the hidden stories behind the world's most talked about public events. As the murmurs of the crowd grew into a collective roar, the physical arrival of the senior members of the royal house signaled the official commencement of the day's grand pageantry, drawing an immediate, thunderous ovation from thousands of dedicated fans who had waited hours just to catch a fleeting glimpse of the procession. The cameras immediately swiveled to capture the scene as the high-profile couple stepped into the light, their every movement practiced, polished, and perfectly aligned with the heavy expectations of their public roles, radiating an aura of calm continuity that has defined their public appearances for over a decade. Yet, as the wave of applause swept through the crowded tiers of the stadium, a highly sophisticated digital lens caught a parallel sequence of events occurring just a few short rows behind the main focus of public adoration, setting off a chain reaction of online speculation that would soon circle the globe. In the background of the widely circulated footage, a globally recognized cinematic icon and celebrated public figure remained entirely focused on her own immediate surroundings, seemingly detached from the collective outpouring of enthusiasm echoing through the venue as she casually adjusted her attire. To the casual observer, it appeared to be nothing more than a completely ordinary, fleeting moment of personal comfort amidst a crowded public gathering, a simple pause to ensure a dress sat perfectly before the cameras turned their collective focus toward the unfolding matches on the court below. However, in the hyper-vigilant ecosystem of modern digital media, where every frame of video is dissected with forensic precision, this apparent lack of overt acknowledgement was instantly transformed by commentators into a potentially loaded, symbolic gesture, raising immediate and intense questions about the unspoken boundaries governing these high-profile interactions. The internet quickly became a battleground of competing interpretations, with observers pointing out that the celebrated actress did not join in the rhythmic clapping that greeted the royal arrivals, standing relatively still while those around her participated in the grand public welcome. What made the moment particularly ripe for intense analysis was not just the physical proximity of these global figures within the tightly confined luxury of the enclosure, but the dense web of personal relationships, historical alliances, and deep-seated public fractures that loomed heavily over the entire scene. Analysts and fans alike began to wonder whether this apparent distance was merely an accidental byproduct of a chaotic, crowded sporting event, where individuals are naturally consumed by their own private conversations, or if it represented something far more deliberate and calculated. The absence of a formal greeting, a shared smile, or even a brief nod of recognition between these towering figures of contemporary culture immediately ignited a firestorm of theories, forcing observers to look backward into a complex history of shared social circles and public fallouts. For many, it was impossible to separate this brief, seemingly cold encounter from the broader, ongoing narrative of familial tension and shifting loyalties that has captivated the international public imagination for several years, creating a modern-day mythological conflict where every public appearance becomes a battlefield of subtle hints and quiet deflections. As the video clip gathered millions of views across various digital platforms, the public began to split into deeply entrenched camps, with some arguing that the entire episode was an artificial creation of an overactive media landscape hungry for controversy, while others insisted that in the world of high-stakes public relations, absolute silence is often the loudest statement of all. The quiet elegance of the sporting venue suddenly felt like a pressure cooker of unexpressed emotions, a highly public stage where the personal and the political threatened to bleed into one another under the brilliant British sunshine, leaving 15,000 spectators in the dark about the real story unfolding right in front of their eyes. To fully comprehend the deep undercurrents of tension that gripped the digital world following this brief glimpse inside the luxury stands, one must look beyond the immediate green grass of the court and examine the complex social matrix that connects these individuals across continents and high society circles. The modern media landscape thrives on conflict, but when that conflict involves the intersection of Hollywood royalty, global cinematic icons, and the ancient institutions of the British monarchy, the public appetite for detail becomes entirely insatiable. As the footage continued to spread across social networks, frame-by-frame analyses began to dominate online discussions, with viewers pointing out that the apparent cold shoulder was far too prolonged to be a simple accident of bad timing or crowded seating arrangements. The setting itself added a profound layer of gravity to the entire situation, because the prestigious enclosure where these public figures were seated is not just any VIP section. It is a historic space governed by strict unwritten rules of etiquette, decorum, and mutual public respect. In this elite environment, individuals are fully aware that hundreds of lenses are constantly trained upon them, capturing every subtle shift in posture, every fleeting expression, and every instance of social interaction or deliberate avoidance. This awareness is what made the actions of the globally celebrated actress appear so calculated to those who believe there is a deeper rift at play, suggesting that her decision to focus entirely on adjusting her wardrobe was a masterful display of passive resistance executed on the world's most visible stage. Critics and commentators immediately began to weave an intricate narrative around the event, suggesting that this was a highly deliberate and public show of solidarity with a completely different branch of the social elite. One that has famously distanced itself from the traditional structures of the royal household in recent years. The connection is rooted in a well-documented and deeply personal friendship that dates back long before the historic fractures within the royal family became a matter of permanent public record, creating a situation where personal loyalties are constantly tested in the public eye. Because the actress has long been recognized as an exceptionally close, long-time confidante of the individual who married into the royal family, only to later step away amidst intense public scrutiny, her every public action is viewed through the lens of that specific allegiance. To many observers, it was completely impossible to view the quiet scene at the tennis match without remembering the lavish high society gatherings, the intimate personal celebrations, and the fierce public defenses that had previously defined the relationship between these two powerful women. This deep-seated bond meant that any public interaction between the actress and the senior members of the royal family would inevitably be loaded with symbolic meaning, acting as a proxy conflict for a much larger and more painful institutional division that has captivated global audiences for nearly a decade. As the match on the court progressed, the drama in the stands seemed to take on a life of its own, with internet users constructing elaborate timelines of the day to determine whether any private words had been exchanged before the cameras began to roll. Some alternative angles of the footage emerged, showing that despite being separated by only a few rows of wealthy spectators, the groups remained entirely insulated within their own immediate bubbles, completely ignoring the physical proximity that would normally dictate a polite greeting or a brief nod of recognition. This absolute lack of contact served to fuel the growing belief that the social divide between these two factions had become entirely unbridgeable, transforming a standard afternoon of sporting entertainment into a chilling manifestation of an ongoing Cold War within the highest echelons of international celebrity culture. The tension grew more palpable as the public began to recall past statements and public appearances where these individuals had crossed paths under very different circumstances, highlighting just how much the social landscape had shifted in a relatively short period of time. Those who defended the actress pointed out that the stadium was incredibly loud, chaotic, and filled with thousands of roaring fans, making it entirely plausible that she simply did not notice the exact moment the royal couple made their highly anticipated entrance into the enclosure. They argued that creating an entire narrative of international defiance based on a few seconds of video was not only unfair but completely absurd, reflecting a desperate media desire to manufacture drama where none actually existed. Yet, in the theatre of high-stakes public relations, appearances are often treated as reality, and the image of an international superstar casually tending to her garments, while the future leaders of a historic institution received a thunderous ovation, was simply too powerful a visual to be dismissed as a mere coincidence. The debate raged across time zones, with media outlets in North America, Europe, and Asia dedicating significant coverage to the alleged snub, analyzing the psychological dynamics of crowd behavior and the subtle language of social exclusion. This intense global reaction demonstrated that the public no longer views these events merely as sports or entertainment, but as a continuous, multi-season narrative about power, loyalty, identity, and the fracturing of traditional social hierarchies in the modern digital age. The silence from all official representatives only deepened the mystery, as representatives for both the royal household and the Hollywood icon declined to offer any clarity, adhering to the classic public relations strategy of allowing a fast-moving news cycle to eventually burn itself out. But instead of fading, the silence created a vacuum that was quickly filled with even more intense speculation, setting the stage for a final, comprehensive look at the deep history, personal biographies, and interconnected events that brought these fascinating public figures to this exact point of intersection. To truly contextualize the gravity of this fleeting moment under the summer sun, one must analyze the remarkable life paths and global standing of the individuals involved, each representing a distinct pinnacle of modern influence and public fascination. Priyanka Chopra, an international powerhouse who rose from the highly competitive world of Indian cinema to conquer the unforgiving landscape of global entertainment, has spent her entire adult life navigating the intense spotlight of public scrutiny. Her journey from winning a major global beauty pageant at the turn of the millennium to becoming one of the most recognizable faces in both Bollywood and Hollywood speaks to an extraordinary level of media savvy and personal resilience. Having starred in massive television productions, major motion pictures, and established herself as a significant philanthropic force on the world stage, she is an individual who understands precisely how the media dissects human behavior, making the theory of an accidental oversight highly debatable to seasoned industry commentators. On the other side of this unspoken stadium divide sat Catherine, Princess of Wales, alongside Prince William, individuals whose lives are governed from birth or marriage by the rigid protocols of an ancient British institution that prioritizes duty, public image, and flawless decorum above all else. Catherine's trajectory from a private citizen to the future Queen of the United Kingdom has been defined by a meticulous adherence to royal tradition, making her a symbol of institutional continuity and immense public affection within the country and across the Commonwealth. Her public appearances are masterclasses in diplomatic grace, where every smile is measured, every outfit carries symbolic weight, and every interaction is designed to project stability and unity to a watching world. The historical weight carried by the royal couple means that any perceived slight against them is not merely viewed as a personal offense, but as a symbolic challenge to the very institution they represent, which explains why the international public reacted with such profound intensity to a simple video clip from a tennis tournament. This entire controversy cannot be divorced from the broader, highly publicized departure of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, whose dramatic exit from official royal duties fractured the traditional structures of the monarchy and created deep ideological divides across the globe. Chopra's long-standing public friendship with the Duchess of Sussex is well documented, having been a prominent guest at their historic wedding and an outspoken defender of her friend during the subsequent highly volatile media storms that followed. This deep bond of loyalty meant that in the minds of millions of onlookers, Chopra was not just an independent spectator at a sporting event, but a direct representative of the Sussex camp, carrying the weight of years of familial conflict, public accusations, and emotional estrangement into the exclusive confines of the stadium enclosure. The realization that these two worlds were colliding in such a compact, highly visible space created a perfect storm for digital commentary, transforming a routine afternoon of athletic competition into a symbolic battleground for the ongoing culture wars surrounding the British monarchy. Analysts pointed out that the public's obsession with this brief interaction reflects a deeper societal fascination with themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the clashing of traditional values with modern celebrity culture. For many, the imagery of a self-made global superstar choosing to focus on her attire rather than applaud the arrival of inherited royalty was a powerful metaphor for the changing dynamics of global influence, where traditional authority no longer commands automatic universal deference. Conversely, traditionalists viewed the incident as a disappointing breach of basic social etiquette, arguing that regardless of personal alliances or private grievances, the historic venue and the presence of senior public figures demanded a level of public respect that was conspicuously absent in the footage. As the dust began to settle on this specific weekend controversy, the broader implications of the event continued to resonate through the worlds of public relations and media analysis, serving as a textbook example of how modern digital algorithms can amplify micro-interactions into global news stories. The incident highlights the terrifying reality of life in the modern public eye, where a single unscripted moment lasting only a few seconds can be detached from its actual context, reinterpreted through the lens of existing biases, and projected to an audience of millions as absolute truth. Ultimately, whether this moment was a genuine, calculated act of silent defiance in support of a distant friend, or simply a completely innocent instance of a spectator being momentarily distracted by her wardrobe in a chaotic crowd, the truth remains locked behind the polished public personas of the participants. The grand machinery of high society and global celebrity continues to turn, and as these influential figures move forward to their next public engagements, this brief afternoon in South London will remain etched in digital history as a fascinating, unresolved chapter in the ongoing narrative of modern royalty and international fame. The final echoes of applause on the historic court have long since faded, the crowds have dispersed, and the pristine lawns have been cleared. Yet the unanswered questions raised in the luxury stands continue to linger, reminding us all of the invisible, powerful currents that dictate the public actions of the world's most watched individuals.